Hey ladies, welcome to another episode of To the Core, my Friday episode of the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. I'm so excited that you're here with me today. Thank you for choosing to spend this time with me. I am closing up March. This is not quite my last Friday episode. My last Friday of the month I'm now dedicating to my hot seat. If you haven't listened to one of those yet, I think I have two now. I have two. This will be my third. And I'm joined by my friend Kelly Schmigdal, and she is just putting me in the hot seat, right? We put the post up in the Facebook group, the private Facebook group, and in our private sisterhood community of Ask Me Anything type stuff, anything that anybody would want to put me in the hot seat about, questions for that. So if you haven't checked out one of those episodes, go and check it out. I'd love to hear what you think. So the last Friday of every month, that's kind of what I have allotted for that spot. So this will be the second to last Friday of the month, this episode. So I needed to close up March, Women in History Month, right? And the theme for this year was the women who tell our stories. So that, of course, naturally became my monthly topic for the Revitalized Sisterhood. We do a different monthly topic each month. We've done some amazing ones like lighthouse, be the lighthouse, not the tugboat, mindset, strengthening our marriages, fear, good leaders ask great questions. Let's see, what else have we had? Anyway, we won't get into that. But every month it's a new topic that helps us not only read an amazing book that we probably never would have read on our own, right? Kind of flexes those self-help book muscles, those learning muscles, expands our brain type muscles, rather than just sitting down and loving on a fiction book that we probably, most of us usually do. So, and then along with that monthly topic, I create a packet for them. So kind of like this here, if you're looking on the YouTube video, I create a packet, and this month it's thick. It's a thick packet, and it comes along with like 8 monthly challenges and like 5 to 6 weekly challenges and questions that go along with the topic of the month. So anyway, I'm sorry if you hear the papers rattling, especially this one because it was raining and it got a little crinkly, but I'm going to go along with, I really want to go along with this. So it might sound a little bit outline-ish, but I think that it's very important, and it's a very, very something that I'm super passionate about, and something that I don't think a lot of women really pay attention to, in the fact that I believe that how we are showing up in our lives is the way we tell our story, right? It's the way that we continue our story on through history, right? For the next generations to pass down, right? So, okay, where do I begin? Let's start at the beginning of this, okay? Is this really where we're at as a sex? Where we as women are divided, unfortunately. And interestingly enough, the pendulum has just swung back and forth, and it's like, when will it just settle down, right? I think we all know what we're talking about. We've gone from so many hundreds of thousands of years of being thought about as last or made to feel undervalued, right? And then from that, all of a sudden comes the women's movements, like all the women's rights movements, which what the Women in History Month was about, which I have this amazing, amazing quote from President Jimmy Carter from when he finally signed off on the Women's History Week, right? Anyway, where that all began. But so we've got all the women's movements, and what came from that, I feel, was not only, and not this specific, when this became Women's History Week, it was actually a very cool thing. It was when the women in the factories united and fought for equal pay type thing. So it was a really cool thing. It was women standing together and being united and empowering each other, right? But then we get into, it started turning into like when I did not major in political science. I did not major in women's lit. I did not major in, I'm not the expert on all things. I'm going to quote you this date and when this women's rights movement happened and when women got the vote and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to quote you on that. That's not what I am. Okay. I'm a woman. I have ears and eyes, and I have, common sense. So this is what you're getting, right? All things coming via Gina, not via political agenda, right? This is just via Gina. So anyway, from this, I believe after this goodness and all of this women standing together started to become our downfall almost. It became women who were stay-at-home wives. It went from these women that were supporting each other down to these women who were stay-at-home wives and mothers that were shaming women who had to go to work or that needed to go to work or that wanted to go to work, right? And then from that, it came back to this, now women want to climb the corporate ladder, and they're shaming women for staying home. What was that in the 1980s or something? When Working Girl came out, right? It was all about climbing the corporate ladder, and women wanted to be out in the corporate world, and they were stepping on each other and whoever they could to get to the top, because it was all in competition with the men. Like, we need to, like, our bar that was set for us to achieve and surpass was a man's bar. It was a bar set by a man. So, like, instead of the women setting the bar and let's meet this bar and let's, it was a man's bar. It was never a woman's bar that we've ever been trying to achieve or surpass. Anyway, so these women that are climbing the corporate ladder are now shaming women for staying home. They're shaming the women who want to be mommies, who want to stay home with their families, who love having a cocktail when their husband comes in the door ready for him, like the Junes behind me, right? So we've just constantly been on this pendulum of, and now we are it feels like we're completely divided in so many things. You guys know what I'm talking about. We're completely divided. It's like, anyway, we won't go there. We won't go there because that's not what this is about. Okay. This is not about that. So where I come in, where Gina comes in, where revitalized womanhood comes in to imbue new life and vitality to something, revitalize womanhood. Let's renew it. Let's revitalize it. Right. So what that means to me is celebrating women who want to just be their best selves, right? Who want to be the best mommy, who want to be the best wife, who want to be the best employee, who want to own their own business, who want to, right? I mean, yes, obviously, I am Christian, I am conservative. Obviously, I do have an agenda. My community is based, but we are still like-minded women in that I don't care what someone else's agenda is. They're not telling me how to live my life, right? They're just encouraging me to be the best version of myself, just like I'm encouraging them to be the best version of their selves, right? I want what's best for them in their life, what that means for them. So what that means for me in Women's History Month, the women who tell our stories, it all comes back to how we, as women in this community, in this, whoever's listening to this podcast right now, how we tell our stories and how we show up in the world, how we show up in our lives is how we're telling our stories. So let me get to this kind of outline. This will also give you kind of an idea of what we work on each month, if anybody's curious. So this month's topic, the quote from Jimmy Carter, I love it. It says, "From the first settlers who came to our shores, from the first American Indian families who befriended them, men and women have worked together to build this nation. Too often, the women were unsung and sometimes their contributions went unnoticed. But the achievements, leadership, courage, strength, and love of the women who built America were as vital as that of the men whose names we all know so well." Right? Isn't that an awesome quote? So women throughout history have been telling stories, whether they were just tales passed down from mother to daughter or actual published works of literature, right? You are all women who were born of women. What stories do you carry with you? We all have a story to share, whether you believe it or not. And that is a huge, let me just, whether you believe it or not, that is going into April, the month of April and May is going to really, really cement. I really, really want to build the amazingly strong foundation of believing these things in ourselves, right? You can fake self-confidence. You can fake self-love. You can fake self-care. You can say affirmations till you're blue in the face, but until you actually believe it, they're worthless, right? So we go into our monthly discussion themes that are, what stories do I tell myself, right? So let me sit in that one for a minute. What stories do I tell myself, and how does the way that I see myself affect the stories that I tell others? Okay. So what stories do I tell myself? So when I got into this with my community, we started with what is called a thought download, and I shared with them a PDF that they could print off. So basically the concept behind this is, in your head, you're constantly bombarded with negative thoughts about yourself, whether it's for an event that's coming up, whether it's just, your overall general appearance, whether anything. Okay, so these thoughts are always swirling in the back of your head. So you look in the mirror and it's like, oh, I hate my nose. Oh, I wish I had skinnier thighs. Oh, my butt's too flat. Oh, my butt's too big. Oh, my boobs aren't big enough. Oh, my eyes are weird, right? It's like forever. Like, just as an example, just when a woman looks in the mirror. Okay. So, for me, the things that creep up are, I'm unorganized, or I don't have great time management. I wish I had better time management. Things that usually, because, well, no, at home it was getting to be that way. I just didn't recognize it as such. I was letting my house control me, right? My laundry was piling up. I wasn't putting it as a priority to get it done. I'd rather just kind of hang out with the baby and play with his toys with him, or watch a show on Netflix, or go to lunch with some girlfriends, which, don't get me wrong, that's an amazing thing. But, the priority was not keeping up on the housework, right? And then, so it would just feel like so daunting because it would just get so overwhelming. And then one day I would finally just break because I couldn't stand it anymore, and I would do it all, and it would take me hours instead of what should have just taken 10 minutes, right? Anyway, I digress. Bring it on back. So what do these stories that you tell yourself affect? How do they affect how you're showing up in your life? So if you're constantly telling yourself that you're not good at these things, or if you're not pretty enough, or you're comparing yourself to your neighbor down the street that seems like she has it all together. Yeah, right. Right. If you're constantly telling yourself these stories, how are you showing up then? Right. If you're thinking it, you are then feeling it, and that is coming out in your actions. So if you're constantly thinking that you're not good enough or pretty enough, then you're not showing up with confidence. You're not, maybe you're not volunteering to help at the PTA, or you're not going to a mommy and me class and making new friends, or you're not going to a spin class and getting a great workout, or, what are you denying yourself, and what are you denying others from not getting the full you, the full, wonderful, amazing you. Okay. Right. Does that make sense? So how does the way that I see myself affect the stories that I tell others? Well, it tells them, if I don't feel good about myself and I'm not proud of myself, then I don't talk about myself, and I kind of turn into a wallflower, or I don't want to go to a book club. I don't want to join a community. I don't want to be part of, right? Do you hear what's happening? You're like withdrawing from your life, instead of being out and living fully in it and with purpose and intention, right? Oh my gosh, I just thought of Alice Atalanta. You're not out learning jujitsu. You're not out taming wild mustangs. You're not out being almost an Olympic snowboarder. You're not writing a book, right? She's such a cool lady. Anyway, she just popped into my head for that. But see the difference? In one way, you're isolating, you're submissive, you're pulling away. And in another, you're showing up, and you're loud, and you're proud, and you're right. Imagine, is it the Truman Show Which movie is it that they're narrating his whole life, right? You wake up in the morning and you hear this narrator in the back of your head like, Gina is waking up. She's changing out of her leopard print pajamas and putting on her cute workout clothes to go to the gym. She's going to face the world and start, like what if your life was narrated like a book? What's the grand story that you're telling? How does your life read? Does it read like your narrator sounds like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh? Like, well, Gina hit snooze again. She's gonna sleep in and miss that gym class that she wanted to go to. Oh, darn. She's not gonna feel good about herself. I'm sorry. It's true. Anybody else hear Eeyore when they do things that aren't productive? Anyway. All right. So I have purpose, right? I share this purpose through stories. Stories don't have to be written words on paper. Stories can be a song you sing. Stories can be a compliment you give to someone. Stories can be, okay, look at this. So I have these gorgeous earrings on that I just got at this market. And now I'm going to have to tell her I plugged them on this episode. Okay, if you're watching the YouTube, you can see these. They are gorgeous. They're so cute. And they're all beaded. Like she sat there and was hand beading these earrings, right? She's telling a story by doing that. She's creating this beautiful piece of art. And guess what? Her story that she's telling that she's going to pass on is that this woman is patient. She cares about beautiful things. She is an artist, right? She is telling a story. And it will live on now on my podcast because I've now talked about them twice, 2 different podcast episodes. But they're beautiful. And that was her way of telling part of her story. Okay. So she has purpose and she's sharing that purpose through creating beautiful earrings. Whatever. I didn't get a meter any more than that, but you get what I say. Okay. All right. I love this quote from Kendra Hall. She is adorable. Kendra, can you please come be on my podcast? She's actually working on her 3rd book. So her assistant told me that she is not doing anything right now. She's totally focused on that. And one day I will have her on here because I just think she is so cute and I love her message. So she is all about telling stories and the stories we tell and all the good stuff. So this quote from Kendra Hall, stories focus your attention and forge bonds based on trust between people. Love it. So why is self-confidence so important in sharing your story? What you say matters. Remember to flex those positive self-talk muscles when you teach a lesson or share a story this week. That was one of the challenges that I gave to my members in their weekly challenges. So it was like, why is self-confidence so important? So it's just the same as what I just said. You're either going to be Eeyore talking to people, they're going to hear Eeyore, and you're not going to be very memorable, or you're going to be remembered as that person that was so boring, or you're going to be remembered as that person that was always negative about themselves or always negative about other people. Or, we all have that friend that at one time in our lives was constantly gossiping, right? I think as women, this is something that we become hypersensitive about because we don't want to be that person. I would hope we don't want to be that person that's ever talking about other people. So I think there's a time that we each go through this. And also, especially when we have kids, we start to notice that they listen to everything we're saying, right? And then all of a sudden you'll hear your kid repeat something that you said and you're like, I'm mortified. I have to be more self-aware, more conscious and intentional about not doing that, right? So I think we all know a person where it's like, I cannot hang out with you anymore because all you do is complain. Or I really just don't want to go visit this person because all they do is talk about how bad everything is, that the world has just gone to shit and the politics and this and that and the other, and blame everything going wrong in their life on everybody other than taking responsibility for it themselves, right? Do you want that to be your story? No, I don't think any of us want that to be our story. Okay? No, I want my story to be it comes back to, what do you want written on your tombstone, right? Do you want to be remembered as the person who was the gossip, who was the wet blanket at the party? I don't know. No, that's not what I want to be remembered as. I want to be remembered as the woman that was the hype girl for her community and was cheering for them in their corner all the time and would elevate any woman at any given opportunity, right? That's what I want my story to read. So try to just, while I'm going through these, just kind of think in your head how you would answer the questions. Kind of think in your head how you see yourself and what the stories are that you're telling, right? Okay, let's see. Oh, when I was having them do their thought downloads, I wanted them to see what the common limiting belief or negative self-talk was that kept coming up. Like if you do multiple thought downloads, basically it's like, imagine it's a brain dump. You're just writing words down, like journaling, you know, kind of, but you're specific in this. Like, okay, say you have a goal and your goal is to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, whatever. Your goal is to lose weight. So what instantly comes to your mind when you start thinking about that? Well, I've failed at this before. I'm not going to be able to do it because I've already tried to do it and I'm just the worst and blah, 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 right? You're writing these things down as they're popping into your head. And then these thoughts, what are the feelings behind those? Like, oh, I've failed at this before. I'm defeated, unmotivated, not going to go to the gym. I'm defeated, unmotivated. I'm just going to overeat. I'm just going to eat instead. What's the point of even watching my calories? I'm just going to overeat and just get it over with, right? This is the thought download process. This is actually a cognitive cycle, but this is the process of a thought download. So then what you have to do is battle those negative limiting beliefs, that self-talk, those untruths. You have to battle those and you have to replace them with a positive. I've failed at this before. You replace with, I'm going to keep trying until I finish this, right? I will make it. I can do this. Failing is just, there's no fail. There's only try until you make it, right? Whatever. I mean, sorry, I'm on the spot. So I can sit down and write very well. I can write content really well, but okay. So as an example, you get what I'm saying, right? You have to battle those negative thoughts. And so on the opposite side of that page, you're writing your positive, you're writing in the now, I'm going to do this, motivating yourself. I can do this. I can do hard things, right? Yeah. So, oh, dang. Sorry. I don't know where I was going with that. Let me see. Oh yeah. I wanted to hear. So I want to hear how many, like, what are the common things that keep reappearing, right? That keep coming up, because there are those things that we have that just bother us. And that is the thing that's the plate that you need to put more attention on, right? The spinning plates that I always talk about. You've got the plate spinning on your nose and this plate spinning on your hands and spinning on your feet, right? If you find that common thread that keeps coming up, that negative self-talk, that limiting belief of that very same thing coming back up, that's the plate that you need to put more attention on, to spin more. You need to fix that. You need to work on that. And anyway, okay. We are taught as children to share our thoughts through stories. A well-built story has characters, plot, conflict, resolution. What story could you tell using one of your thought downloads? That was interesting. So basically, if you read your thought download, what's the story going to say? What's the story that you're telling others? What's the story you're passing down to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation, to remember you, to remember what great grandma Gina was, right? Okay. It is great to see the growth of female recognition in writing, particularly in the last century. But what is important to remember is that female storytellers have always existed and had a big influence on art, writing, and storytelling. Okay, this is where I'm talking about things like these earrings, these beautiful earrings I'm wearing, right? Women can create stories through dance, through song, through my beautiful friend Randa that sings the national anthem. Oh my gosh, she sings beautiful songs when she starts her podcast. She kind of says a prayer, but she sings them and it's so beautiful. That's her story. She's telling her story like that, right? Kira, who was just on, that channels people's books. She's a book medium and she speaks to her angels, and that is her telling stories, right? She's telling her stories. So a really great recipe. Oh my gosh, my friend Trish, you all know, Trish Mickler, you all know Trish. So my friend Trish, she makes so many amazing things, but she's got this recipe, and Hayes and I, when we were in Maine, were just like, oh my gosh. And I'm actually going to ask her if she'll make it at the retreat. Just so y'all know, if you're coming to the retreat, I'm going to ask her if she'll make it. It was this pasta, like this big old casserole kind of dump of pasta, but oh my gosh, it was so good. Hayes and I were like, can we have more of that? I think I ate it for all 3 days we were there. I just kept eating the leftovers because she made a huge vat of it, and it was amazing. That's a story she's telling. Her bottling is a story she's telling. Her preparing jars of food that they're going to eat later, that her kids are going to eat later in their lives, and remember the stories of her bottling this food, just like I do with my mom. I had my mom on the episode, and we talked about how I grew up with fresh homemade bread every single day. I came home from school and there was warm bread, and my friends would come home with us and eat all of our bread and homemade strawberry jam on it, right? That's a story. That's my mother has just told her story and passed it on, and it's now passing down through the generations. She made cinnamon rolls with my kids for the first time. She came and stayed with them while Rick and I were gone. And I said, would you please make cinnamon rolls with them? I think that would be a really fun thing to do, because I remember making cinnamon rolls with her. I remember, doing the butter, doing the cinnamon sugar, putting the raisins in, and then rolling it up and then cutting it with floss or string, right? Tie, cut. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you've done it, you've done it. You know what I'm talking about. That is my mother's story she's telling. My grandmother, Thelma Manning, oh my gosh, she made the best scrambled eggs. How weird is this? This is the weirdest thing. She was on a farm, and I don't know what the difference was, because at the time when I was finally there, she didn't have chickens. I didn't go get chicken eggs. It must have been the butter she used. I don't know what it was about this woman and these scrambled eggs. They were the best thing I ever had. And I remember I'd stay with her and then go home to my mom and say, I want grandma's scrambled eggs. They were never the same, ever. Never the same. I used to ask my grandma and say, Grandma, please teach my mom how to make your eggs. It's the funniest thing. So weird. Scrambled eggs. And now my mom does. It's called the circle eggs. They call them the circle eggs. They're totally different. They are not the same eggs I had with my grandma, but they're now Grandma Evelyn's eggs. My kids eat tons of those. They always ask Grandma Evelyn to make them circle eggs. That is her story that she's telling. She's proud and passionate about something, and it's now being passed down as a story. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Please don't make me repeat myself, okay? So that brings me to, who are the women that came before you? Create a family tree highlighting the women that came before you. Have any of you done genealogy? Have any of you done this? This is kind of a big thing in our religion, in the LDS religion. Genealogy is kind of a big thing. I'm sure it is to a lot of people as well. But how far back can you reference your family tree? And then I asked all of my members to highlight all of the amazing women that came before them. And I wanted them to find these stories, okay? Because, wow, we've all been watching Yellowstone. We've all been watching 1923, and what was the one before that? 18 something something. Those stories are insane. And we know that they are true. People lived those stories. Those are actual stories. Have you looked into who came before you? What's the stuff you're made of, right? What's the grit in the women that came before you that they passed on to you? And why are you not living fully in the purpose of that? Is that too intense? Okay, if you had great-great-grandma that came across the plains in the wagons and people were dying every day or getting killed by Indians, or what was the game we used to play? Oregon Trail. The Oregon Trail, remember? And someone was always dying of dysentery, or your ox floated down the river and died, or whatever. These are stories of these people who survived this, and how strong are they? And could you even do that? I know our church puts on, and is it our church, Mom? You'll have to tell me. Someone puts on a event in northern Utah every year, and it's they basically reenact being pioneers and pulling wagons and stuff. But holy cow, that is pretty cool. Rick and I went to Escalante and did the there's a part where the pioneers had to rope wagons up from Lake Powell, basically where Lake Powell is, and it's up this canyon, and we could barely hike up and down it. We started getting heat stroke, and I mean, it got really scary. We had the 2 little boys at the time, so I was carrying Hayes, and then we got so dehydrated. It got kind of scary. And I thought, if one of us gets injured, the other one's got to go and figure out how to get help and get these other 2 out of here. Because the rocks were even super hot. Like the kids couldn't touch them to climb back out. Oh, that's a story. Okay. That is a story. But how were these people pulling wagons up? I couldn't even walk up it carrying my child, and they were pulling wagons up. I mean, the people that came before us, they have some serious grit, and thank goodness we don't have to do that kind of stuff anymore. But that's what you're made from. That's the stock that you're made from. So look up these stories and remind yourself that this maybe wallflower who doesn't feel like she can be in social situations or settings, right? Came from a woman who made it across the damn plains by herself with her children. Okay, let's just kind of try to put something in perspective. Look into this stuff. What is the cloth you're cut from? And what stories are you now telling? Sorry, I'm jazzed about this. It's so cool. All right. So that's what I was asking him to look into, at least 3 of these women, and research what the significance was during that specific period of time, what they did, like a day in the life, right? Like what a day in the life looked like for them. Like they'd wash their laundry on rocks, or I don't know. In my head, all of these people lived very hard lives. Okay. Obviously. And then did you find any common bonds that you share with these women? How did you relate, or did you find a way to put yourself in their shoes? Okay, right? How did you relate or not relate? Okay, do we relate because we were all trying to raise kids and trying to make them be grateful and happy and fulfilled, right? That's common. That's a common thread, trying to make sure they were healthy and strong and fed, right? But still worked and appreciated the things they had. Even though they had very little, they probably appreciated the things they had. All right. So there are gaps in my life story that I will never know, some things about my family. Even though my family did really well to document things, I have a book from my great grandma that she wrote. And actually, I just found journal entries that Rick's mom had given all of us from his grandma June, and I can't read them. Oh, she had like really tight cursive handwriting. I can't even read it. Man, our generation, that we just didn't do the cursive so much. And anyway, I tried reading it and I couldn't read it. So I'll have to find someone to like decipher it. What's the word? Sorry. Okay, moving on. We won't worry about that. So there are gaps in my life story and it that I will never know some things about my family. A part of my identity will forever be a mystery. I'm sure for many of us, this is the case. There are holes in our family story, like dots that will forever remain unconnected. My grandmother and great grandmother had passed down many stories about their lives, but not all of them. And there is a power in telling our stories, all of our family stories. There's a power. It's like, if you don't know history, it's bound to repeat itself, right? If you don't educate yourself. The more we know and tell our children about our family history, the stronger their sense of control over their own lives, the higher their self-esteem, and the more successful their own families will function. I love that. I love that. That's a very powerful thing to talk about, especially because I go into talking about toxic traits of families that you want to break cycles, right? You don't want to continue a toxic trait. Yelling, screaming, hitting, trauma from past generations. You don't want that to keep living through the next generations, right? So that's why I ask them, what traditions or stories will you continue to pass down? I challenge you to start journaling, not only for your own well-being, but for your future family members, right? Also, be okay with and find strength in your conflicts, okay? When you're journaling or when you're thinking about going through your day and something hard happens, or you have an experience or a relationship that ends or whatever, Okay. Try to be intentional about seeing the growth that will come from that conflict, right? The strength in the conflict. How did you overcome it, or how will you? Sit in the idea that you will grow stronger from the struggle, much like your thought download. Make a list of conflict that you have dealt with in the last 5 years. How did you grow from it? So I actually was talking about this in my episode with Kelly. It'll come out next Friday. I was talking about how I have regrets, and not regrets in the sense that, oh my gosh, I wish that would have never happened. No, like regrets as in, oh man, I wonder what that would have been like, right? Okay, so it's fine to think of things like that. But I also came up with the philosophy that the murderer of a happy and fulfilled life is what if. Right? Let that sink in for a minute. That's like, drop the mic. I'm done, right? So no one wants to live in what ifs. No one wants to live like that. So just take the chances, okay? Oftentimes the things that we think are scary, or the chances that we want to take, or maybe we're in a career and we think we don't really want to be in this career anymore, but we are scared about what if we change. We're like all the what ifs, right? The murderer of a happy and full life is what if. So we sit and we're ruminating, right? We're creating stories in our heads that don't actually exist, or they may never even happen. So you need to figure out how to release yourself from the worry of that, okay? Because it's most likely things that will never happen. It's just these dramatic stories we tell ourselves why things are so bad. It's because it's the unknown, right? We're so comfortable in the known, even if the known is like not good. It's better than the unknown because our brains tell us these stories like the unknown's so scary. Okay, where did we get to? So to wrap this up, this is going to be one of almost my longest Friday episodes because it was something I was really passionate about this month, and I was really excited to share it. And I had all of the women. So usually in a monthly topic, I choose a book of the month and we all read the same book, like Mindset or Atomic Habits or Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, or, you get the concept. This month, however, I asked the women to choose a book by themselves. It is Women History Month and the women who tell our stories. So I asked them to choose a book by themselves. But when doing this, I asked them to be very specific. Okay. So I challenge them, when you're reading the book, I want you to actually read it, okay? To treat the time as sacred, not only that you'll never miss a reading session, but that you'll be fully present, right? Not only that you're like, oh, if I got to hurry and read this book because it's part of our monthly topic, I just get through it. No, I would rather you just not finish the book. Like, I would rather you take more time and understand it and fully be present in it, especially this month where it's these women's stories. Oh my gosh, someone's reading The Midwife of Auschwitz. I cannot wait to talk about that tonight. Okay, I think it's Nicole's reading that. I cannot wait to talk about that tonight. That's going to be, whoa. Dorothy's book was Famous Women in History. I'm super excited to hear about that. Anyway, there's just a whole list of them, amazing books that these women have chosen. Eleanor Roosevelt's autobiography, right? Amazing. So I'm excited to talk about it, but I put the challenge to them to be fully present, right? When it's you in the book, the rest of the world will cease to exist. The phone will stay face down and silent, and you will take in each word, right? Binge culture and multitasking have honestly led us to read books like we would a tweet or an Instagram post. But you can stop this, right? You can be intentional. It's like anything. It's a practice to remember, put your phone down. Back before phones, like, it's so funny. It's so funny to me when people are driving and they absolutely have to check the text or they absolutely have to check the email. And it's like, hello, back before phones, you weren't rushing home every 10 minutes to check your email. You weren't running to your desk every 10 minutes to check your email. I mean, it's fine. That person that's getting a hold of you can wait an hour to have you get back to them. Talk about boundaries, right? People who are attached to their phone to the point where they're almost inflicting an unsafe environment, right? Obviously, using it while you're driving is to that point, that is so addictive. And anyway, sorry, that's a episode for another day. Anyway, so this is what I was talking about was, just be really resist the urge to skim through the words and instead choose to really read the book, right? So I gave some tips of how to do that, constantly checking yourself, pausing at the end of the page and considering whether you actually know what just happened. That happens to me a lot. Sometimes I have to rewind things, especially in these self-help books. Sometimes people like psychologists or psychiatrists, they speak in different ways that are a little harder for the common man to understand, right? The second way to achieve this is through consistently questioning what's going on. Like, did I understand that? What just happened, right? So anyway, in this, I hope you all took to heart, like, what is the story that you want to share with the rest of the world, not only through the next generations, but today, every day. Are you living in your life fully and presently and intentionally, right? Are you like intentionally prioritizing the most important things in your life, things that bring you joy, things that bring you happiness and fulfillment, right? Are you prioritizing those things? If you're not, why not? That's silly. You literally have one life. You cannot get more time. And some of us get a lot less than others. So why would you be living your life not intentionally? Just imagine the narrator writing your story as you do it every day. And will your story read, Gina sat and had her coffee on the couch while she watched TV for the next 2 hours. Then she finally got up and changed her clothes, past the pile of laundry that was overflowing on her bed. Right? I mean, I don't know what else to say to you, but how do you want your story to read? How do you want to show up in your life? Okay, that's enough. That was a good to the core Friday episode. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I really appreciate it. I really hope that some of this is just, I love aha moments like, oh, that was so true. Yes, why am I not doing that? Or why did I not think like that? That's the whole point of expanding our horizons, right? That's the whole point of podcasts, is getting to be inside someone else's mind, right? Getting to meet people without actually having to meet people. You get to get inside of their minds and see how they tick and what they think about. It's really cool. So thank you for spending your time with me. If you haven't already heard about the Revitalized Sisterhood event, retreat is May 18th through the 21st. It's going to be amazing. I cannot say that enough. I'm super excited about it. I'm the one planning it, and I'm so excited for it. If the person planning it is so excited for it, it's going to be amazing. So check that out. If you have any questions on that, go to www.revitalizewomanhood.com or catch me on Instagram, Revitalize Womanhood on Instagram, and shoot me a DM. Jump in my DMs. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. Why are you not in the sisterhood yet? Get over here. Let's live fully in our lives with intention and purpose. Thanks, ladies. We'll see you next week.